As a realtor, your financial future is completely in your hands. So this week on Talking Real, we have special guest Rebecca Foster to help point you towards some of the tools available and the strategies you can implement to make sure your financial wellness is as good as it can be.
What are those tools and how can you maximize your savings? Find out on this episode.
Welcome back to Talking Real, brought to you by the Oklahoma Association of Realtors. This is episode 158, back in the studio with your hosts, Jeff, that's me, and my good friend Nabil. Nabil, how are you today?
And that's me. I'm doing all right, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing all right as well. We've had a crazy couple weeks, so appreciate you guys and your patience with us, but we're great to be back here in the studio. And we're going to be talking about something today that I'm really excited about. But first, we want to make sure that we get every single one of our, if you're listening to Talking Real right now, and whether it's your first time or you're a consistent listener, we need you to do something. We need you to join us by signing up for Capital Conference.
That's right.
This is really important. It's free, okay? So go to okrealtors.com/Capital Conference and get signed up. It's free. We're going to do a Talking Real live with a special guest. Grant Cody from the Oklahoma Real Estate Commission is going to come join us. I know how much everybody loves hearing from the Real Estate Commission, what's going on over there. Grant's great, and I'm excited to have him on the show as well, Talking Real Live, that goes on during Capital Conference.
Yeah. And other than that, we've got a ton of great sessions with legislators and everyone else. Yeah. I was like, who else is on there? There's a lot of legislators on there. So it's really interesting to hear their perspective on everything that's happening. You can check out all the sessions at OKRealtors.com/Capital Conference. And, I mean, Jeff mentioned it's free, but when you register, you get a swag box. It's not just a bag, it's a box.
Absolutely. Yeah. So please come join us. We want you to get signed up. Really important. So check that out. And now we're going to jump into a special guest, right? We've got our special guest, Rebecca Foster, that's joining us.
Jump into a special guest?
We're not going to jump into a special guest. We're going to flying dragon kick, jump into a special guest. Jump into our discussion with a special guest, Rebecca Foster. And we're going to be talking about financial wellness for realtors with a little bit of a focus on retirement planning and some of the tools available. Because if you're a realtor and you're an independent contractor, it's all you to figure out how to save for retirement. And I know that can be overwhelming, but Rebecca's got a few things that you can look into on how to make sure that you're planning for your financial wellness on into the future.
Yeah, and this is something that Jeff and I have been, we talk about this on a daily basis almost.
Yeah. And
this is something that my dad would always teach me was like, plan for the future. You never know what's going to happen, save. And so it's a topic that's near and dear.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump right in with, not jump into, jump in with Rebecca Foster. We're joined here on Talking Real by special guest Rebecca Foster. And Rebecca, we're so excited to have you here on the show. Rebecca is a strategic consultant with the National Financial Alliance. And Nabil and I have been talking about this topic for quite some time. And we're excited to finally be able to have somebody on to chat with us about kind of just that financial planning, retirement planning, just how to start taking care of your future as a realtor. So Rebecca, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Just couldn't be any better.
Couldn't be any better. That's good.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So we're just really appreciative of you giving us some time to come in and talk about this. This is something that is near and dear to my heart. When I was young, I had an aunt and uncle who very much impressed upon us how important it is to save for retirement. And, you know, they didn't have high-paying jobs. My aunt was a teacher. My uncle was a mechanic, but they saved diligently and were able to have a good retirement on that. And as realtors, you know, so many are independent contractors, so they don't have an employer-provided retirement plan or anything like that. And so I think a lot of times people forget that they need to be dealing with it. How do they manage that? And how do they start saving? And what are their options? And so I know there's so much there and it can be really daunting. So we wanted to bring you in to give us a little idea of what kind of things could realtors be doing to make sure that they're taking care of their financial security.
Well, start by saving and creating what I call an emergency fund. And so a lot of advisors will tell you, well, you need like 3 to 6 months. And so, but with someone being a self-employed contractor, I would say it would be better to have 6 to 12 months and closer to that 12-month range of what your monthly budget is. Because if something happens and you get hurt, you can't work, or what other emergency should come out, maybe you need a new roof or your car breaks down or whatever, you need an emergency fund to be able to draw from. And so for self-employed people, I really think having that longer term out there is really the best thing.
That makes sense, especially for realtors. I mean, as we saw this last year, it was interesting because the market actually kind of caught fire and just went crazy. But as COVID was first starting to hit, now that we're here flashing back a year ago, there was this immediate reaction that everything's going to shut down. Mm-hmm. And when things shut down, as a realtor, like the checks dry up, and it can already be very up and down with gaps between transactions, things like that. And so I see where having a little bit longer runway as an emergency fund would be advisable for somebody in that kind of situation.
Yeah, it's imperative, especially with just kind of where we are in our world, especially right now.
Yeah.
Are there any particular strategies to develop that emergency fund, or just a savings account is good enough for that?
I like to keep it really, really liquid. So a savings account, whether you have it at your local bank, credit union, or there's some places like online where you can actually get a little bit of a interest rate. It's a concept, I know, on some of those accounts, but you just need to be able to have access where you can get it as soon as you need it. So it's not something where you would want it to be put into a CD or something that's going to have a maturation on it. So. Yeah, so just really liquid. And I would just say planning for retirement is extremely important, and you need to start now, but you also need to have that emergency fund, because if you don't have that, you're going to hit penalties and all different other things. So you kind of need to do both of them at the same time, but really put toward that emergency fund first.
Right. And I really like what you said about interest rates. What a concept. Because usually banks don't offer much of it, so wherever you can find a good interest rate,
and you're probably not going to right now.
Yeah.
So
hey, 1%, that's a great interest rate. Snatch that up. That's
hey,
something.
It's better than pennies.
Yeah, exactly. So realtors too, typically they receive their payments just in these lump sums of commissions. It's not a monthly amount or every 2 weeks or whatever the case is. And so another thing, so if say we've got the emergency fund set up. The next thing I think, though, is that near term that's not thinking about retirement yet, but also, taxes as well. I think that's something that realtors need to be thinking about as well. And I know you're not necessarily a tax professional, but do you have any methods that you would advise somebody to make sure you're setting aside just a certain percentage every time you get a commission? What are your thoughts on that? Yeah,
for sure. And so you have a lot of people out there that like the envelope theory, and that's great. You can do that, but I like checking accounts. So it all comes into one, and then I divvy it out to the others. And you need to have your savings, and then you need to have another one for, your taxes. So whatever tax bracket you're in, basically your adjusted gross income. So what kind of taxes are you paying after your expenses? Yes, I'd be putting a percentage of that back every time. And so hopefully you can get depending on what your spouse does, if you have a spouse or, if you're single, you can kind of get an idea about how much you're paying each year, because ours varies every year, because when you're self-employed, it's just...
the ups and downs can be...
It's challenging at times, yeah.
Can be extreme, for sure.
Yeah, but I would put it back each time.
Yeah.
Especially in that situation.
Absolutely.
What is the envelope theory?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. So the envelope theory is where you could take, your taxes, your groceries, your vacations, just everything that you want to plan for in your planning, and basically you create an envelope for it. So, maybe you put $200, you plan for $200, a month or a week or whatever for your groceries or your spending or whatever. And maybe you put $50 a paycheck into your vacation fund. So it's just basically creating a separate space. So it's You either have it done through your checking accounts, or some people do it through QuickBooks or an Excel spreadsheet, just whatever. So
or under your mattress.
There was a point where people use cash, right? I mean, and they would literally take their paycheck, cash it, and put it in the different envelopes. Yeah. And once that money was gone for that envelope,
it was gone.
So like gone. Individual buckets for each particular expense that you might have.
Correct.
Exactly. Yeah.
I like that.
So save for your taxes. Don't get behind with the government, because they'll come get that money.
And I think this is why this conversation is that much more important for realtors, is because unlike most professions, all of this stuff doesn't happen automatically.
Right.
So it's like so many things to think about.
Yeah. I mean, our income, right? Like our paycheck comes in and a retirement amount is already taken out. Taxes are already taken out. I don't have to think about it. Right. But when you're self-employed, you've got to make those quarterly tax payments as well. And if you don't make them, or you pay them late, or you don't pay enough in, then the government's going to charge you more money, because you're going to have that penalty, and then you're going to have interest on top of that. And so it can really start to add up when you don't do those things correctly.
A little tangent. I had an $18 fee that ballooned into $600 because I didn't pay it on time. So they add up real quick.
Don't pull into Beal.
Yes, don't.
Oh, and don't forget, don't just think federal taxes either. You've got your state too.
That's true. That's true. So you got to write 8 checks a year on your taxes. Well, 10, because then you got to actually pay when you file your taxes. So
hopefully you've already paid enough.
Hopefully you've already paid enough. In my experience, it's never enough. It seems to never be enough. I don't know.
It is nice when you get that refund, though.
Yeah.
Even though it's your money that you're getting back.
I haven't had a
still
refund
feels
in
good.
Years. That'd be nice.
I haven't either.
I think that would be something. Forgot what that was like. So switching gears a little bit. Okay, so we've got taxes accounted for. We've got an emergency fund set up with that ideally 6 to 12 months of costs and expenses put back. So now we can look forward towards, there's different philosophies here too. Maybe you take that Dave Ramsey approach, you want to pay off your debt. So maybe that's the next thing is you're paying off your debt. But let's say we've even got a good place there, and we want to start looking at saving for retirement as a realtor, because they don't have a retirement plan set up, but they still have a lot of options available to them. As a self-employed kind of person. So can you give us an overview of what kind of tools a realtor might have as an independent contractor to help them save for retirement?
So one of the greatest tools that I like with the SEP IRA, with realtor saving, it's the SEP IRA. And so with the SEP IRA, you can take 25% of your adjusted gross income. So basically that's your gross minus your expenses to get to your adjusted gross income. And you can take and put that into every year into the SEP IRA. And so like for 2020, you can put up to $57,000 in there. Well, that's a nice chunk of change. And also, so that's going to lower your gross taxable income of what, it could put you in a whole nother tax bracket. It's phenomenal. For 2021, it's going to go to $58,000. So that's something that I would do. Now, as long as you're a contractor. So if you have an employee, in other words, you're not giving your employee a 1099, but you literally have them as a W-2 employee, whatever percentage you do for yourself, you have to do for your employee as well. So if that $57,000 or $58,000, if that was, 20% of your income, then you're going to have to give them 20% of their income. So there's some other options that you can use, but a lot of realtors are contract. And so, you're probably paying the people that help you, you're probably paying them contract as well. And so it'd be great for each of you actually on your own.
I had no idea the limit that was that high.
That's what I was about to say was I didn't realize the SEP IRA was 25% and up to $57,000, and you can deduct it from your taxes, which is incredible.
So also with the SEP IRA, you have this year up until April the 15th to file, to put in for your last year's SEP contributions. And so the great thing of that just helps you with your planning, could help you even with some cash flow and things like that if you were trying to do some other spending that you might have to try to reduce your income for 2020. So it can give you a little bit of leeway.
It's cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. I always thought it was December for some reason. That's good to know.
Yeah, you can always. I know that, like, even with like a like my traditional IRA that I have, if I go and I make a contribution now, it'll ask me right now, do you want that to go to last year or next year?
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the
traditional last year, yeah.
Traditional and Roth are like that.
Nice. So you could use some income from 2021 to go towards 2020 before you. That's interesting.
Gives you a little bit of tax planning there, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it.
You learn something new every day.
So that's a great plan because you would still have, traditional IRAs or just a traditional Roth IRA that people would have available as well, just any person. But the limits are significantly lower on a plan like that.
Yeah. So even though you may do a SEP IRA, consider that. Even though it says IRA, consider that your employer contribution type IRA. And so you can still do a single IRA, traditional or a Roth, as long as your income is below the level that it needs to be. So in 2020, if you made over $139,000, if you were single, or if you were married, if you made over $206,000 combined, then you couldn't do a Roth. But anything under that, you could definitely contribute to a Roth.
Okay.
And for those of you that don't know what a Roth is.
So this is where peel back the layers of the onion a little further.
And so for those of you that don't know what a Roth is where you've already paid taxes on the money that you're contributing to that retirement plan. And so all of the gains that you have from today, if you contributed today, until you take it out, say at 65 when you retire, all those gains are tax-free. And there's not very many things that are tax-free in our world, so take advantage of them.
Right.
And so, so I love the Roth.
That's nice. So where the traditional, that's coming from pre-tax dollars. So you're lowering your gross income right now, but then when you take that money out, you got to pay taxes on all that.
So at some point, no matter what, you have to pay taxes. It just matters when you pay the taxes, either before you put it in or after you take it out.
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct. Now, one of the things that you should look at and plan with your CPA is, am I making more money now? Is my tax bracket higher now, or is it lower versus when I retire? And hopefully it'll be lower, but the likelihood is, we don't know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Or maybe hopefully it'll be higher. Hopefully you'll have all the money in the world when you're ready to retire.
But you don't want to pay higher when you have to take it out.
You got to make some speculation and guess as which one's going to be better for you. But like you said, with the Roth in that circumstance, if you make over a certain amount of money, it may not even be available to you. But certainly depending on where you are, that's a really valuable tool to have at your disposal.
There are some other options for tax-free besides just the Roth bucket.
And this is when everyone starts listening really closely.
There are. They're just they're a little bit more. They're not complicated. It's just a different type of investment. But there are things that you can do to be able to pull out money tax-free at retirement. And I'm happy to get into those. I just don't. I probably shouldn't open up that can of worms.
So we're going way down the rabbit hole.
That might have to be a part 2.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can cut that out.
No, I feel like people should know that there's tons of other options other than the ones that we're just discussing here.
So these are just, I would say, your more traditional ways. So.
That's nice to know that. Again, I didn't know the details on the SEP there, that you had such a large limit there. Of course, like you said, if you've got an employee, and some of our realtors do have employees, they may have an unlicensed assistant, for example, that they actually hire as an employee. So you got to be careful if you're going to do one of these plans that you work with whoever your investment advisor is that's helped you setting up this plan, that you're doing it right, because you don't want to run afoul of any of those regulations either. So keep that in mind, that there are some rules there if you're going to use these types of things. But
it really comes down to, and I only want to say this because I had this happen with a client during the whole COVID, and when you're applying for the CARES Act and those different things. When I say employee, I mean W-2 employee. In other words, you are holding out their federal, their state, their the FUTA and all that. I'm not talking about you give them a 1099. So if you give them a 1099, they are not considered an employee. And so
it's good to know.
So it's not just anyone you pay. It's
that would be a contractor. It's how you pay them.
Yeah. So, okay, so they've got the money in there. And I guess the other component, though, is that money's pretty locked up. When is it that you can actually start taking withdrawals from that fund without a penalty? I think there, you can take money out early, but you get penalized pretty heavily if you do that.
Right. So with the SEP IRA, it's very similar to your 401ks and things like that, your other group retirement plans. If you take money out before 59 and a half, then there's a 10% penalty plus whatever tax bracket that you're in. You'll pay taxes on that as well. And so it's exactly the same.
Okay. 59 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
That's the age.
I'm getting there. Got a little bit to go, but we're on our way.
59 doesn't seem so long, does it?
No, it doesn't. I just had a birthday just a couple days ago. I'm 38 now.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for the cupcakes.
Yeah. So we had cupcakes today to celebrate birthdays. So anymore, and now at 38, and I'm like, I'm staring down 40, and then 59 and a half is just right around the corner from there. And then it's off into the sunset, retired with my stocked full IRA.
That's right. No penalties.
Yeah.
So just going back real quick to like the traditional, the Roth and the SEP IRAs, are you limited to just one type, or can you have multiples of those?
Multiple accounts of each of those?
Or like the different types. So say, you have the traditional or you have the SEP. Can you still open a Roth?
As long as you can still open a Roth, as long as your income limits are underneath the limits.
The 139 and the 209.
Yes. And so, but as far as doing an employer plan, as far as being the SEP, you can still do that and either do, $6,000 into the IRA or $6,000 into the Roth as well. So you could put back your $57,000 and then your $6,000. You're putting back, what is that, $63,000?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you can do that, hallelujah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's
so if
fantastic.
you really want to go deep into savings or retirement planning, you can open up the different ones and max them out.
That's exactly right.
Do you have I know it varies for each person and everybody's particular situation is different, but if you've got a realtor that's out there, they're getting their commissions, do you at least have like a rough guideline for what people should be looking at as far as a percentage they should be setting back for, your average person? How much should they be saving? I feel like I've heard different things and it changes from year to year.
A rule of thumb.
Yeah. So what's your thought on that matter?
Well, it's a really loaded question.
It's an unfair question, and I know everybody's circumstance is different, but
it is, because everybody's lifestyles are so different. So, we used to hear that people were going to live off of 75% of their income. We would hear that all the time. Well, now we actually plan for you to live off 100% of your income, or really close to that. So, if you can put back, this sounds crazy because I've read some things, if you can put back 10 to 15% of your income, and that seems like a lot because it is a lot, and especially depending on your age, when are you starting? Are you starting at 21 or are you starting at 51, or 61?
Right.
Unfortunately. So so when I say 10 to 15, it depends on your age. So really, I think everyone needs to work with an advisor. And the reason is most of us don't learn these things in school. So many people don't even learn how to balance a checkbook. So if you're working with an advisor, whether it's one locally or, wherever, I just think it'll help you put your plan together and put a budget together and help you just, again, putting that plan together. So, because if we have a plan, then we're less likely to fail.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I said, maybe if you're 25 and you're starting out and you're going to put 10% of your income for the rest of your working career, maybe that's right for you. But if you're not starting till you're 38, like if you're my age and you're just starting, you may need to save more because you missed out on 20 or 10, 15 years of that interest and gains and everything else that you might have had.
Right.
So,
and then it would also depend on what your income actually is. And
right.
So like you're saying, there's
it also
tons
depends
of
on how
different
much
factors.
Also depends on how much debt you have, and what, some of your other responsibilities are. And to kind of give you an idea on compound interest. And so when you're talking about retirement and all that tax deferred growth, just to give you an idea, if you had someone start from 21 and they're going to put in for 10 years from 21 to 31, and they're going to get, just say 8% rate of return, okay, which is that's not aggressive. I just say that's just kind of growth. and then they stop at 31 and they don't put in any more. And then if you have someone that starts at 31 and they put into 65 with that same 8% growth, the first one's going to win every single time. And it's nothing more than compound interest.
It's magic.
And that's the magic.
If you're putting
right?
in the same amount, every
Absolutely.
month.
So you mentioned something about working with a financial planner or financial advisor that can help with that. So tell me a little bit more about that, because how do you recommend somebody go about finding somebody, and what does that service looks like? Everything from budgeting to planning on paying off debt to saving for retirement. Is it that kind of whole encompassing financial wellness kind of thing?
Well, yeah, financial wellness is so important, and every financial advisor is a little different. And so there's a lot of advisors out there, and they do a lot of trading with all the stocks, the bonds, mutual funds, the commodities, just everything that's going on. And and they'll manage your investments. Then you have other advisors that, they may do more of that whole financial planning. And so that where you're looking at your whole picture of what you're doing. And when I talk about this, I'm literally talking everywhere your money goes, because again, I always kind of go back to, God, I didn't learn any of this stuff in school, And so if I hadn't have been in this profession, how much would I not know? A bunch, most of it, because when you're looking at your life and, everything from how much life insurance you have, how much, how are you going to provide your income if you can't work, if you're off for 6 months or a year, your retirement. So it's just looking at every part of your life and helping you walk through that process. It's really imperative, because you don't know what you don't know until you go, ooh, I thought I had that covered. Or, ooh, I never thought about that. That's why it's important.
And then it's too late. So don't let it be too late.
Yeah.
So are there any, tools or apps or other kinds of resources that you recommend for people that want to find out some more information, or to kind of help them? Like what direction would you point someone in to start looking for this kind of information?
Well, there's lots of info on the internet, So there's some apps, like Mint or MoneyWise, or there's just several of them. Some of them are free, some of them aren't. I know a lot of people that use some of those. As far as just locally, whatever city that you're in, there's different advisors, just to be able to help you. So just make an appointment and go in and see someone. You might even ask your CPA if they have a recommendation or this or that. So
now that it's tax time, that'd be a good time as you're working with that accountant, and ask him, hey, I need to start saving for retirement. Who can I go talk to, or just in general to have that financial advising session?
Yeah. And sometimes this just seems like such an abstract subject, because like you were saying, you're not really taught this, you're not exposed to it unless you go out of your way or do the research or talk to a financial advisor to learn about this. So when I was starting, I used one of those apps. I used Stash that automatically took money out and put it in, so I didn't have to think about it.
And that's awesome.
But when I saw that money grow, and I was like, oh, so that's how that works. It kind of makes it a little more tangible, and that's what kind of spurred research into everything. So those free apps and tools that are widely available, if those are easier access for people, that's awesome. When
you're putting into the SEP or something like that, if you're able, if you've been a realtor for a while and you kind of know where your income normally falls, that's the best way to save, is just to have it come out of your checking account every month, or every week, whatever's good for you. That is the easiest way to save. So
automate it.
Yeah.
There's this other one, Acorns, that just rounds up your purchases and saves your
change.
Yeah, your change, which is fun to think about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Rebecca, as we close out here, we always like to have our guests give just one last final piece of advice or some words of wisdom for all of our listeners out there. So as we're talking about, all this financial wellness and everything, what would be your just kind of final closing piece of advice for our realtors out there?
One of my favorite things for realtors, realtors sell houses and they sell buildings, and and I see so many of them, and they put everything back into real estate, and I think that's great. I just think they need to diversify some more. So because if something happens and we can't sell that house or that building and we need that money, maybe our nest egg isn't our emergency fund or whatever isn't what it needs to be. So I just diversify a little bit more. I've seen so many that scares me.
Yeah, I like that. Real estate's a great investment. Don't make it
It's
your
not the only one.
investment.
Right.
Be diversified. That's
Right.
perfect.
Yeah.
And Rebecca, before you get out of here, do you have any way that people can reach out to you and contact you if they want some more information or to have a chance to meet with you?
Yeah, our website is tnfaok.net. So tnfaok.net.
Perfect.
And we would love to visit with them.
Absolutely. So give Rebecca a call and start planning for the future. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for coming out and giving us some of your time. I know this will be very insightful for people, and hopefully we'll encourage somebody out there to take that step to start planning a little bit more for their financial health. So thank you again so much for coming in and joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So appreciate so much Rebecca coming on, joining us, giving us some of that great information. And I really, really do hope that this inspires somebody to go out and open a retirement account, set up some savings so that you can be prepared for when that time comes, that you can sail off into the sunset feeling financially free.
That's right. Or just the first step, the savings account,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean, it's tough in the daily grind to think about, well, what am I going to do 2 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? So I think, I mean, I love this topic, and I think we talked a little bit off air of how we could have gone so far into the weeds.
Right.
Right? There's so much more that you could know and learn. So I'd say this: if you're interested in more information on this topic or a subset, a rabbit hole of this topic, let us know.
Absolutely.
And we'd be happy to get Rebecca back on or someone else back on to talk more about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want to make sure that we're providing the resources that you need right here on Talking Real.
So let us know at podcast@OKRealtors.com. And while you're doing that, leave us a rating, write us a review, let us know how we're doing, and give us 5 stars, no matter how we're doing.
We appreciate your feedback. So until next time, we'll see you next Tuesday on Talking Real.